Hey guys, so welcome to this video on the update statement in T-SQL or Transact-SQL or SQL Server, depends on how you refer to this subdomain of query language. So today we're going to be looking at the update statement, which as the name suggests is basically used to modify records that already exist in a table. So I'll just pull the syntax up for you. Actually I put it here in the slide. So you've got a very simple update keyword followed by the table name. Then you can use the set keyword to specify which columns you want the data to be changed and set the data that you want changed. So that's where you see this column 1 and value 1, and you can specify all the columns. Some of the columns are just a single column depending on how much data you want changed in each row, and then you specify the where condition. So the where condition is specified so that you can pinpoint a specific row that you want the data to be changed. So basically the statement goes in, looks at the where condition, matches that to a particular row of data, and then it goes back to the set keyword and looks at the columns that you've mentioned and inputs and changes the value existing in the table with the value that you've placed near in the set keyword, next to the set keyword. So let's just jump into the demo and I'll set up the environment for you. So we're using Azure Data Studio, which is the SQL Server tool you need for Mac. And if you're on Windows, you'll be using SQL Server Management Studio. I've got installation guides for both of those respectively. I'll link to them in the description below. And apart from that, for the sample data, I've created a GitHub repository with a file name table setup.sql, where you can go in and just copy the creation table statement and also the data to be inserted, so you can practice some of the statements, the queries along with me of the update statement. I've got another one called update demo.sql, which is another file in the GitHub repo, which basically will have all the queries that I'm using today, so that you can, if you're confused, you can just go in and check them out here. And I'll link this repo in the description below. So let's dive into the demo. So first, let's get an understanding of our sample data, which we had inserted. So to select star from sample data, which is the table's name, run. So you can see we've got a ID, a first name, a last name, an email, a gender, IP address, age, country, credit card, and currency. Pretty standard table. Maybe a little small with only 100 rows, but enough for our purposes. So let's go and see how the update statement works. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I've realized I've entered somebody's first name wrong, and I want to go in and change their first name. And the first name that I've identified as the one with the mistake is this ID number 7 called Mathian, and I want to change it to John. So how I would do that is, I would look for the column of data in this specific, I would look for the data item in this row, which would specifically point to Mathian. So male is generic, IP address could be specific, age not specific, country won't be specific, visa like credit card, currency and all won't be specific. So it's only IP address and email that could specifically point to Mathian in this situation. So that's the condition that we'll use in the where clause. So let's jump into the update statement. So we do update, and then we write the table name, which is sample data, and then we do a set, as we had seen in the syntax. We mention the column name, set first name is equal to John. And then here's the important part where we specify the where. So where email is equal to, we can copy this email that is given as mchase6@usnews.com. And then when we run this command, pay attention to the number 7 row. It's Mathian now, it's going to change to John. So that's run, and we can see 1 row affected. So now let's call the data back again. we just run this select star. You can see ID 7, the first name is changed to John. So now I'm gonna point out to you guys why we had specifically used the email in the where condition. So say we had used the gender, and we had pointed gender as male. The issue here is there are multiple rows of data in this table wherein the gender is male, and if we run a statement like this, what happens is every row of data in the table where the gender column is male, the first name will be updated to John. So let's see what happens here, and let's run the data, view the table, and you can see everywhere we have a male, like in ID 3, in ID 5, 6, and 7, first name is John, and further down ID 13. So all the first names have become John, where the condition, where the gender has been male. So that's why you want to use conditions only very specific that point to just a single row. In other words, a primary key, and we'll come to what a primary key is a little later on, as it's a little more advanced concept. But just know that a primary key is a column in a table of data that points to only one specific row. So you can pull out a single row, or you can point to a specific row using a primary key column. So an email is an example of a primary key column. An IP address is an example of a primary key column. An ID can be an example of a primary key column depending on how the table is set up. So another thing to note is that if you just remove the where clause and you don't specify a condition and you run this update statement with just set first name to John, what happens is every row of data will get modified. So now we've got a table with all first names John. So you want to basically be very careful when you are using the update statement, and you want to make sure that you point to only the rows of data that you want to be updated. So that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, hit the bell notification icon. So thank you guys.